once I got past the wow, am I really here moment of being a part of that kind of leadership team, again, back then I did struggle with really understanding and seeing my accomplishments and what got me here. But once I got past that, I did start seeing things of I wasn't as vocal as maybe I would be one-on-one, or I was a little bit timid in some of my responses because I wondered, how would I feel? How would they perceive me? Would I become across as a hateful woman, if you will, if you know where I'm going with that, instead of a strong woman? I think as women, I don't think I know, as women, we have a hard time being direct because we think that it really gives us a bad name. When our male counterparts can be as direct as they need to be and everything is great and everybody moves on and it was the right thing to do. But I think that we really internalize that more than we probably should. I know that I have and do at times, instead of being direct.
Welcome to the She's So Sweet podcast, where we interview accomplished women who have worked their way to the C-suite. I'm your host, Kristi Faltorusso, Chief Customer Officer and award-winning customer success executive. I am so thrilled to introduce today's guest, Summer Brown, Chief Growth Officer at CipherHealth. Hi, Summer. Welcome to the show.
Hey, Kristi. Thank you so much for having me today. I'm excited about our conversation.
Oh, me too, Summer. Your background, your journey looks so impressive, and I know everyone is going to be really thrilled to dive right in. So why don't we get started? I want to kick off by let's introduce your role, your company. So tell us a little bit about your role at CipherHealth as the Chief Growth Officer. So maybe tell us even a little bit about what CipherHealth is.
All right, great. Thank you. So I'm excited to share with you about CipherHealth. We really are cutting edge technology where we really focus on the patient continuum all the way from pre, post, and inpatient. So we absolutely try to affect the patients across that journey in order to really impact their the success of their stay in the hospital, all the way out to really impacting readmissions for health systems so that we have the best patient experience possible for their patients. And so when I think about what we do, you are really focused on customer success. That's where my background has predominantly been. And so not only are we trying to make customers successful, we're trying to make patients successful within that continuum of care. So that's really what we do in a nutshell. And it's exciting stuff.
That's really interesting. And honestly, I don't think there's enough focus on patient care. I don't know if you've ever had relatives in hospitals or going through any healthcare needs, but it's not always fantastic. So I love that there is some company out there that is really focused on that. So that's wonderful. Tell us more about your role though. So Chief Growth Officer, what does that practically mean? And what does that look like at CipherHealth?
Yeah. So really, I head up the sales initiatives. I help develop and execute on the go-to-market strategies, and I really manage most of the post-sales customer operations. We are really focused on new, company growth through bookings, upsells, and retention. So if you think about what are we selling versus what are we retaining, it all falls within my purview. And I've got some really great teams that help accomplish those goals.
I love that. So Summer, you have marketing, sales, and the customer experience org?
I don't have marketing now, but it's actually on another team. It's got a dotted line to me, but sales and all of the customer success teams, including like professional services and that sort of thing.
I love that. I often feel that there is not enough collaboration across those functions, or even when there is, it's not as strong or great as it could be. But seeing it under one leader usually drives deeper collaboration there. So I love to see that. Okay, now I got to dig in a little bit here. So I have to imagine that you probably didn't have a lifelong dream of becoming a Chief Growth Officer at CipherHealth. So tell me a little bit about where your journey began. What did you want to be when you were younger?
Yeah, I'm going to date myself a little bit and tell you kind of a funny, but when I was younger, after Splash with Daryl Hannah and Tom Hanks came out, I really thought I was going to be a mermaid. And so, that was my dream for quite a while as a young child. And then when I realized that was not in my cards, I really wanted to become a physician. My mother was a nurse, and she is, when we talk about women in leadership, she definitely is my inspiration, and I can get into that in a little bit. But seeing her be the strongest nurse and really understanding the medical field really had helped me aspire to be a physician. And so, traveled on that path all through school, including starting as pre-med in college, and really wanted to be a plastic surgeon. I wanted to really focus on not the cosmetic side of that, but really how to improve those with disabilities or some type of issue that really needed to be improved through that type of surgery instead of more cosmetic. So I've always had a drive to help people. So even in that venue, really wanted to make sure I was on a path to help those that were in need in various ways.
I love that, Summer. But now, how did we go from med school and wanting to be a plastic surgeon to now the role that you're currently in? So, like, what did that transitional path look like?
Yeah, great question. So during my pre-med school, I actually was good friends with a professor who was over the College of Business. And she convinced me to take, as an elective, a computer class. And this was, when this was pre 2000. And so this was when computers were really starting to be a thing, and roles in technology were really taking off. And so I took it as an elective and really excelled at it and loved it. And it came really easy to me to really be on that path. And so as I started down that path, I thought, well, I will actually do a double major. I was actually also married and pregnant at the time. So just a little bit of background there too, as we talk about my path and different kinds of passions there. But once I realized that was something that it was really a passion that I didn't know I had and an interest, and it was very new to me. So really started focusing on that, started down a management information technology degree, which is really focused on computers and networking and programming, and ended up really staying on that track, thinking about, okay, for myself and where I wanted to, with family and that sort of thing, where did I want to focus my time? And the business degree with MIS focus was definitely the track that I needed to stay on. So that's how I got, pivoted from one extreme to the other, really. Once I graduated from college, I actually started as a person at an IT company. I took my baby to my interview and I thought, this is so weird. Is this even supposed to happen? But they were really anxious to talk with me. It was it was actually my last year of college, and it was somewhat of a co-op type thing, or an intern type thing, I guess. And so once I got hired there, I was the first woman in the company. So that was when I was starting to kind of see some, that was unique to me as well, in just the environment that I had grown up in. And did things like build computers. I put in, built laptops, built hard drives, those types of things. And so that was unique to me as well. So really enjoyed that and started my process into where I'm at now.
Wow, that's like such an impressive path and pivot. I love that. Do you have any regrets? Like, do you ever think like, wow, I wish I would have stuck with like the medical track and become that doctor?
I get to be a part of healthcare in a different way. So no, I don't.
That's true. You're right.
So yeah. So definitely stayed in that track. I've just kind of merged the two together, which has been really fun.
Oh, I do love that. That actually makes a ton of sense. Okay, so now I want us to do a little reflection. Now you've shared with us a little bit of how we got from mermaid to chief growth officer, which I love that. In fact, I really do hope that you own one of those mermaid tail blankets where you can kind of slide it on and it's just like a blanket. And if you don't, I will send you one because I think that you still should live out your mermaid dreams. But I want to talk. Yeah, great. So that I'm putting that on my list and that will be coming your way. But you've had such this impressive journey to even get into where you were. And I want to share that with our audience, but I want to do it through the lens of, pivotal moments and decisions that you've had to make. So let's reflect back for a moment. What were some of those real pivotal moments for you or decisions that you feel really contributed to your ascent to the C-suite?
Yeah, that's a great question. So, some of the real pivotal moments, and I'm going to start with when I was still in college. I had a moment where I realized, let me say this, moving into a C-suite role or even leadership as a whole, you really have to have a bit of resiliency. I think you would probably agree with that. And so When I was a senior, and it was last year of college, I had my first child, and he actually ended up having seizures. And we ended up going to Vanderbilt University, which I am in Tennessee, so that's fairly local for me. But it really rocked my world, right? I'm thinking, hey, I'm a year out, easy thing to do, gonna have this kid, everything is awesome. And that was really a moment where I thought, oh, wait, life isn't exactly the way that you plan it. And how does this affect this year on me within the getting my degree? And so I quickly learned how resilient I actually was at an early age. I often don't really see myself in this type of role or see myself as resilient. And I often, one of my lessons learned is I had to be reminded of that and to start looking at it from my eyes and my perspective. But that showed me that I really was resilient, really could do hard things and do them well. And so not only did I graduate, but I also graduated on the dean's list. So that was really my first to see my own drive, if that makes sense, and really see that I am a driven person, and set me up as really a pivotal moment of who I am and who I want to be. Moving forward, I worked. I mentioned earlier that I worked building computers. I moved on to that to if you fast forward, really built a career, just to quickly summarize, in professional services, doing implementations for various companies, working within a hospital for large corporations as the IT department to really help facilitate some of the needs of the various departments within healthcare. But then one really large pivotal role that's really put me on this track was I had a friend reach out to me who started a SaaS company, and they were growing pretty fast. And he knew that my background was in healthcare, and he knew that I had all types of different experience there. And he kept asking me, hey, why don't you come work with me, see what we're doing? And, I kind of pushed him off a couple of times, or just wasn't quite ready because of where I was. And then one night we went to dinner our families went to dinner. And the next day I said, okay, I'll come talk with you, and ended up there for 2 hours. I started with that company as director of integration. And within 2 months, just loved what they were doing. It was inpatient engagement, and within 2 months, promoted as VP of operations. It was a new role that they were looking to add, and I was lucky enough to really be quickly seen as someone that could fill those shoes. So that was the major pivotal moment that has really shown me that leadership is the track that I want to be on, and the impact that I can make with what I can do and what my teams are able to do, and align those teams to do those things. I was also, just of note with our conversation, I was the first female on the leadership team at that point in time. So I definitely did not take that for granted. You look around the room, and it also is a really great opportunity of growth of, for me, one of the things that I have to always continue to battle of old habits is making sure that my voice is heard. And so that was a really good opportunity for me to really learn how to make sure that my voice is heard. And knowing that if I'm thinking of a particular idea in a executive meeting, someone else probably is also, right? And so making sure that I, and come forward with those things and be strong in what I know and what I can contribute was really impactful at that point in time in my journey. Through that time, I then moved on to another customer success role with another startup. When you talk about resiliency, absolutely in a SaaS startup, high growth.
Oh, yes.
I don't know that I think that's the number one trait. That's one thing that I actually started trying to interview on and ask that magical question. And then fast forward to another company where I became the VP of customer success and focused pretty much on the same areas. I was also the first female on that team. Again, did not take that for granted. And then that has brought me to the chief customer officer, is actually what I started as at CipherHealth in 2022. And then a year later, took on the sales team with the growth officer title. So lots of movement that I'm very proud of and very thankful for.
I love that. Now, I want to talk, because now you mentioned it twice in your career, where you were the only and first female in some of these executive rooms. How did that make you feel? How did you navigate that? Let's dig into that for a moment, because I mean, I sit in a similar role right now where I'm a chief customer officer, and I am an organization where all of our leadership is male except for myself. We're a smaller company, but that's not the first time that was my experience either. And so I know that I've got certain learnings and experiences and things I had to learn how to do. I want to hear, how did you navigate that? What were some things that you felt you had to do to, again, make your voice heard, to navigate that?
Yeah, great question. We, one of the things that we did, we met weekly as an executive team, and I was driving half of the company from a standpoint of the customer growth, right? And that was a time when even customer success was not available, and so that was a team that I also added later. But really sitting at that table early on, once I got past the wow, am I really here moment of being a part of that kind of leadership team, again, back then I did struggle with really understanding and seeing my accomplishments and what got me here. But once I got past that, I did start seeing things of I wasn't as vocal as maybe I would be one-on-one, or I was a little bit timid in some of my responses because I wondered, how would I feel? How would they perceive me? Would I become across as a hateful woman, if you will, if you know where I'm going with that, instead of a strong woman? I think as women, well, I don't think I know, as women, we have a hard time being direct because we think that it really gives us a bad name. When our male counterparts can be as direct as they need to be, and everything is great and everybody moves on, and it was the right thing to do. But I think that we really internalize that more than we probably should. I know that I have and do at times, instead of being direct. And so that was really something I had to learn. I also, to help kind of, because I didn't really at the time have anyone to talk with about that. And so I started reading books. And one of the books that really was really meaningful for me was called Nice Girls Don't Get the Corner Office. And corner office can mean anything for you, right? Like it doesn't necessarily mean the corner office, but it's whatever that corner office metaphor is in your journey and in your life at that time. And it really opened up some of my own habits that I really didn't see, that if I could correct, really put me in a better position and really gave me the confidence that I needed to have those types of conversations. And, without meaning to sound too boisterous, really saying, really realizing that it's not that I should be proud or thankful. Let me say that a little bit differently. Not that I should be thankful that I was part of the team, but be proud and recognize that they should be thankful that they have such a strong team as well. And that includes me. I hope that makes sense.
It absolutely does. And it's actually a sentiment that I echo quite often, which is I have no one to thank or blame for where I am in my career, right? Like the opportunities that I've afforded myself, I earned that. I earned those rights. Nobody gifted me anything. I worked really hard. And when I stumble and I fall or I do something wrong, I take accountability for that also. And so I think it works both ways. And I think it's something that we have to recognize is that we got to where we are because we did the work, right? We earned our right to be where we are today. So I love that. Now let's spend a couple of minutes because I know that we talked about this as a challenge, right? Being that only female, but I'm sure there's been other challenges along the way in your journey. So let's talk about that for a moment. What are some of those significant challenges or the obstacles that you had to personally navigate, and how did you overcome them?
Yeah, really interesting. The company that I mentioned earlier, where my friend asked me to join, and during that time, I had a CEO who was also a co-founder who I ended, once I got the VP of Ops job, I did report to, and he was a first time CEO, and he, one of the things that just to be really honest, surprised me because, it's kind of like until it happens to you, sometimes you don't really understand or grasp the severity of where we are in society. And so what I mean by that is he went to hire someone that would report to me, but wanted to pay him more than me. And this individual was younger. He was a younger male, not in a protected class. And he was also very inexperienced coming into that. And so I was just kind of like, to be honest, I was like, wait, like, does this really happen? Like, am I being punked? Like, what, what is happening here? And so, that was like a real eye-opening moment for me. Now, I will say that, I had a great board and a great the other co-founder that I mentioned. He was fantastic, and they did take care of the situation, so it didn't persist or anything like that. But that was one of those major eye-open aha moments for me of like, this is real, right? And this does happen. And what is my behavior during that time? How am I going to be poised and professional, but also not stand in the background and let those things happen? So that was a major battle scar that I have. But I'm also, I don't regret that either, because again, another moment of learning and growth for me as well, and how to handle those tough situations.
Wow. I mean, to your point, right? Like, you hear these things, you know that there is some injustice happening and it exists, but to see it so blatantly presented to you like that, that's wild. Oh my goodness. Well, I'm glad that you guys that you spoke up and you navigated that appropriately. And I hope eventually that CEO maybe learned that's not the best way to manage the team and to build the organization that he needs and would want for the company to be successful.
Yeah. And that same company, I'm proud to say that I ended up not being the last woman on the team. We did have a female CEO come in sometime later. So, and she was great.
That's wonderful to hear. Now, especially I love to hear women in CEO roles. You don't ever see that quite enough. So I'm always enamored when I do. So what else? Okay. So we have this challenge. I'm sure there's other things. What were some of those other obstacles that you had to overcome and navigate?
Yeah, just some other things is, it's one thing when you're growing really, really strong, but when you're as a company, but when you're not, like, how do you pick up and again, be resilient? How do you address things quickly? How do you put things in place to really push growth and really get teams behind it and change mindsets of teams that may not be a growth mindset? One of the things that I've really loved, and although it's been a challenge, it's been one of the best ones I've been through, is when I started as the chief customer officer at Cipher, and took on the growth officer role. One of the things that I really looked forward to, and you mentioned this earlier, if you would have asked me 3-5 years ago, hey, should a chief customer officer or chief revenue officer take on these cross-functional teams, I would have said, no way, let's stay in our lane. We can collaborate without having to be over each other. And I do think if you have a great leadership, because I certainly have had counterparts where they have been fantastic to work with, and we've been able to collaborate and really mesh our teams. But one of the things that challenges I had ahead of me is, how do we make these teams less siloed and really work well together? And, we are breaking down those barriers. They are doing great things. We are really, improving our day-to-day and changing mindsets and working together as a team. And it's really a beautiful thing to watch.
Yeah, I have to imagine that that's always a difficult one. I only know a few leaders who are over both. And I always ask them, like, how was that received internally? Because it's typical that the leader might have strength in one area and not the other, right? So maybe for you, like your career, it was in customer success, coming up as the chief customer officer. I don't know if you had real sales experience. And so to be over a team like that, what's the perception, right? Like, do folks listen to you? Do they want to? Are they feel like this is a good move for the company? So I also see that there's a lot of things you have to navigate internally to build that trust with these teams, because it's not given in the sense that, you grew up and were promoted into that role linearly, the way we kind of often find ourselves in these seats. So how did the team respond? Was that something that you had any challenges navigating, or was that like everyone was on board day one?
Well, I think that, it may have surprised some from a standpoint of, I don't, outside of like renewals, retention, upsells, those types of contractual things, and just some other things, not any real direct sales experience. And so I'm sure, some people may have questioned that. However, I was really, really thankful that I had a year to build my really reputation within the company, and worked cross-functionally as well in that role, where I was able to really build trust across the company. So I think it was perceived well. I hope they would tell you that. But ultimately, I am, even though I've not had a strong sales background, I am a bridge builder. That is the one thing. If people asked you, if you ask people about me, I think they would tell you that I'm a bridge builder and I'm a cheerleader. And so being in this role allows me to be able to do those things, not only within the sales and the post sales customer teams, but also across with product and technology. And have just really been really enjoyed being a part of being able to do that.
That's fantastic. Well, I'm interested to chat in a year from now to see how you've continued to build that out and the success of the company, because we're seeing more and more of that, right? These leaders who are being kind of put over these cross-functional organizations. In fact, one of the guests I interviewed was who the CRO of Calendly. She originally was the CMO. They put her as CRO, and now she's over sales and marketing. And so it's always interesting to see these strong leaders, right, be able to have domain experience in one area, but be able to lean into another to have that cross-functional responsibility. So that's so exciting that you've been able to earn that opportunity, which I think is a great way to segue, because obviously I would look at that as a huge success. I'm sure you do as well. And I'm sure there's others. So when you think about your career, what are some of those big moments where you're like, wow, like this is a really proud moment for me. I had this huge accomplishment, because quite frankly, I don't think that we toot our own horns enough, and we're not patting ourselves on the back and celebrating these big monumentous moments in our career. So what are some of your big proudest moments?
Yeah, I've got a few, and I'm totally with you. That has been one of the things that I have really had to work hard at. In fact, one of my most favorite things that one of my direct reports said to me years ago was, "Summer, you're so focused on what has not yet to be fixed. You're not seeing all of the milestones and accomplishments that you've made and that you've helped the team make." And I had to really take a moment on that, right? Because really the biggest thing for me is I did not want to be perceived as someone who wasn't congratulating her team at those certain milestones. I didn't want to basically project my lack of feeling accomplished, if you will, on my teams, because I thought so highly of those teams and what we can accomplish and that sort of thing. But even earlier than that, one of the things that what was an early accomplishment before I even really got into leadership is I was asked to take on, this was when health systems were really moving to electronic health records from paper.
Yes.
And there was a physician, I was asked to take on that project for a cancer center. And the physician there was really, really hard to work with. And that's what I was being told. I did not know him personally, and that this was something that he absolutely did not want. It was being dictated from the hospital, and because I am a bridge builder, my goal, no matter how the health record transformation happened, was to get him on my side, right? And I was able to do that and successfully implement that electronic health record with even his backing at the end of the day. And so that again really showed me you can do hard things. I call myself secretly competitive. And what I mean by that is you may not see me on the sidelines jumping up and down and screaming, but I am competitive, especially when it comes to when I'm being told that I can't do something or something cannot be done. And I think that's just a mindset that you have to have, right? Especially as you're wanting to be in leadership and grow to that executive level, is being willing and able to be competitive within yourself and not let people tell you that you can't accomplish something. So that would be one. Another one would really be around, going back to when I started as VP of operations, being seen as someone that could hold that role, being a new role, being a growth company, a lot at stake for those people that made that decision and bet on me. Was another area of success. And then being able to grow a team that I took I started with 2 to a team of over 60 and growing that company and really going through a process was another really big accomplishment. And we did things like put in processes that affected time to value positively. We got down case time closures and did all of those metrics. We met and succeeded all of the metrics that were in front of us that are really seen as those top deliverables for teams like professional services, customer success, and support. And being able to really be a champion for our customers was another level of success. And having my team really back me in a way that was really endearing, and me being able to see, how they saw me in their eyes was really something that is something I'm really proud of too. Because like I said early on, I did not see myself that way. And so there's nothing better than really getting to see that from other people, and taking a moment to really reflect on that.
It's really special to be able to have that realization. I always say, like, I wish I could see myself through the eyes of others, because to your point, right, we're yes. Especially as ambitious women, we're always working to the next thing. We want so much to be better, faster, stronger, right? Like this, like, drive to the next level, that we don't pause to reflect. And we always think that we're not doing enough. We haven't achieved enough because the goal is still so far out for us. But honestly, I think it's because we keep moving the goal, right? So that's it's an amazing experience that you had there. And I'm glad that you can reflect back and see yourself through the way that your team sees you.
The She's So Sweet podcast is brought to you by Client Success. Client Success is an all-in-one customer success platform to help post-sale implementation and success teams manage customers from new to renew. Through an industry-leading platform approach, Client Success gives businesses an in-depth view into customer health, product usage trends, along with churn and risk data, so that your team can not only retain customers, but help them grow as well. Whether it's managing customer onboarding workflows in shared portals, building custom health scores, tracking sentiment with NPS surveys, or doing more with less through AI and automations, Client Success gives customer success professionals a true one-stop platform to manage all aspects of the customer journey. To learn more about the industry's fastest to implement customer success platform, visit www.clientsuccess.com. That's Client Success. Simple, powerful customer success.
And I love the saying that empowered women empower women. And I think, part of why, and we talked earlier before we started recording today, is my why behind this podcast is the idea of empowering the future leaders. And so I'd love to hear how you feel like you're empowering women in your day-to-day, so that we are, again, building the next generation of female leaders.
Yeah, great. Would love to share with that. So early on, I started looking at, I knew that I needed to feel empowered, and I knew that I needed to feel more confident and stronger. And so one of the things I did was I started, and this is way back, I started teaching group fitness classes, but that was really to help women fall in love with themselves. It's not about falling in love with being skinny. It's about falling in love with being strong, whatever that looks like for you. When I did that, I did not realize the impact it was going to have on me, really understanding how helping women see themselves, like you said, in someone else's eyes, and how strong they are. It really impacted me and really fueled me to do more of that. And so, at previous companies, I've also led some of the, like clubs or groups for women to help grow them in leadership. And obviously I've opened that up to, we've not, it has been women focused, but anyone is invited or was invited at the time. And we, every quarter, had a different opportunity that whether it was a speaker, we had the female CEO come and speak to us. We talked about, this myth of a complete 50-50 balance of life and work and professionalism. Or we did things like book clubs and leadership books. So that was another area that I've really loved being a part of. And then today, my leadership team is 75% female. And I really do try to encourage them and make sure that they see themselves for who they are, and really help them understand that like I mentioned earlier, their voice is super important. And we should never be quiet when we have great feedback. We have great ideas, and maybe it's not a great idea, but someone else may have it, or it may be just enough of a great idea to get us to that next even better idea, right? So really being able to find their voice is important to me, and being a part of just being a part of it is great for me.
I love that. I mean, it's something that I think what I really love about I would say female leadership community, because we are a community of female leaders, is their work and dedication towards educating and enabling other folks. But I think what I particularly like about the work that you've done is through these group fitness classes. So I got to ask for a second, as a little fitness junkie myself, what kind of group fitness classes was it?
Yeah, there is something called body pump. I don't know if you're familiar with it, but it's actually weights. I did two types. One was weights, like an aerobic style class with weights. Loved that. So again, taking it back to being strong, not skinny necessarily.
Right.
And then the other one that I taught longer was cycling and spinning. So, really just, and I am a music person. So being able to also motivate through music and being able to define those tracks that we would work out to was really awesome for me to be able to do that.
I will tell you, so I do Orange Theory every single day, like literally 7 days a week. And it is true what they say about the music, because the curated playlist that they play throughout the class, you always love the coaches that have the better playlist based on your taste and what motivates you. And it's funny to see performance correlate to music. So I love that that's something that you call out, because I experienced that as well. Now,
yeah, and with that,
fitness,
I would actually. Oh, I'm sorry. I was just going to say with that, that was feedback that I got was, we love your playlist. You have the best playlist. And so it became kind of, again, back to that competitiveness. Like I've got to outdo myself from the week before. But it does, it gets you energized and makes a difference for people.
Couldn't agree more, which also leads me to kind of where I'm taking this next, is on creating this work-life balance. What's interesting is that every person I've asked so far this question basically is like, Kristi, it's a silly ideology that work-life balance is something that we're aspiring to have. But I'm really interested in hearing your perspective on this. So when you think about creating balance for you for summer, what does that look like? What habits have you created? What strategies have you deployed to give yourself some sense of balance while you're navigating this really, tough career path?
Yeah, I love what you just said too, because like I said earlier, the 50-50 balance is a myth. And it took me a while to really come to terms with, it's an 80-20. Sometimes it's a 60-40. It's so mixed, depending on where you are. It can be day to day. It can be week to week or whatever. But some of the things that I've put in place for myself is, I'm an early riser. I always have been. So that was easy for me. But I do get up super early, at 4 a.m. And so, even on the weekends, I get up that early because if it's become such a habit of mine today that if I don't, I feel like I've wasted, if I wake up at 6 or 7, I've wasted part of my day. And so, that is one area. And I really use that time, before anyone else is up. I do have 3 kids. I use that time to do things that really root me. And those, I am a woman of faith. And so I do spend some time, meditating and in my faith. And then I also try to spend some time on, exercise and reading. And that reading could be, in the professional sense and can range from all different kinds of, books geared toward leadership or maybe the market or whatever, may be. Just some other things that I've learned to leverage, and it's not always perfect, is I've learned that you can't expect people to just know to help you, even your husband, right? Like you can't, or your partner, you cannot expect them to know that you need help in the moment. And so I really went through a time where I was kind of just mad of why are they not helping me? Like they know that dinner needs to be fixed and, all the things, and I'm running from my office. And so I really started having some conversations with the family around, I need help. And so it was a real eye opener again for me of like, we don't know when you need help, but we would help you if you would just ask. Right. And so learning to be able to leverage those moments when I really do need help and asking for it and not feeling like, number one, I've got to do everything myself. Because I do think women fall into that, right? We fall into being the caretaker. We fall into being like the super uber, successful leader. We fall into being the best partner or wife, whatever. And so really being able to understand that we do have limits has been really helpful for me. And then just being able to have that moment of reflection and quiet time. I think everyone needs that. The other thing that this is a continual work for me, is not letting my day-to-day get out of hand. And what I mean by that is, as well as I do, when you're on the customer side, and especially when you add the sales into it, you can be at any moment pulled into any type of situation, whether it is hey, we've got to get this signed quickly, we're on a tight timeline, to a customer has escalated. And those are moments that you can't say no to. Like, they don't fit into that perfect little schedule that you have tried to make for yourself. So really trying to carve out times that I can think strategically. And that is continuing to be something that I have to work on. But I have learned that if you take that time for yourself, your teams are better for it, for sure.
Absolutely. Nobody regrets time off, right? To reflect, to replenish, to refill your cup. Nobody comes back not being a better, stronger leader. So I love that you've prioritized that. I don't think there's nearly enough time for us to get to do all of the things. And that's why prioritization is so key. And I love how you articulated that. I think the last thing I want to call out is your ability to ask for help. That's also a common theme that's come through a lot of these episodes with women. Is one of the life hacks that we wish we would have taken advantage of sooner is asking for help, and whether that's in the professional setting or at home. And so I love that not only were you able to do that with your family, but they're all receptive and like, Mom, Summer, I want to help you. Just tell us what you need help with. And it's we don't ask for help enough, right? We almost see it as a weakness, and then we expect people to do things and they don't, and let us down, and we create that. So I love that you're having those conversations.
Yeah, it's been absolutely big help.
I love that. So let's take a minute. Let's look back, because I think kind of coming off of that, right? Things we wish we had known, like this asking for help is probably something we all wish would have done a little bit sooner, but better late than never. As you look back and you think about advice or things that you've learned along the way, what's like that one piece of advice you wish you would have had earlier in your career that you feel would have really changed your trajectory or how you navigated things?
I think I could really sum it up with live intentionally, not perfectly. And what I mean by that is, again, I think that we strive to be perfect at everything we do. It's funny because one of the things I've really gotten to learn about myself is that if I can't do it perfectly, sometimes I just won't do it, which is a total horrible mindset to have, right?
Right.
And that can be anything from, well, I can't spend an hour working out, so I'm not even going to, instead of, you know what, you've got 30 minutes, get something done, make it meaningful, you'll feel better, everybody will be happier around you, that sort of thing too. Really something much larger of being in a leadership role of if you don't see that you can do it perfectly, not doing it at all and taking those risks. I think that ultimately is the biggest thing that I wish I would have known. And that leads me to things and decisions around like putting the right people in place early on, delegating more effectively, right? Because I'm not trying to be perfect. I'm not trying to do everything myself. And honestly, no one expects, I don't expect anyone else to be perfect. So why put that on me? Because that really becomes the center of a lot of things that can be improved just within your mindset once you kind of break down that wall of needing to be perfect in all things.
It's so true. And I think, I won't even just isolate this to just women, but we all, I think, get to a place where we have such high expectations for ourselves. And like, to your point of perfection, it's like we hold ourselves to a different standard and we're striving for something that's honestly just unachievable, right? Like nobody's ever going to be perfect. And so we're almost like holding ourselves to this regard that just we're setting ourselves up to fail. So I do love that that's a mindset shift that you've embraced, because I'm sure even the workouts, the 30-minute workouts have had some positive impact. And I'm sure releasing and doing things, building new processes or programs or just delegating have all led to greater things, right? And so not being perfect sometimes leads to greatness regardless.
Yeah, absolutely. And you get to bring a team along with you, not just make it about you.
Yep.
So
Right. And especially as leaders, it's not about us, right? It's about the business and
That's
everything that is that. So the team's there as well. So I love that. Okay. Well, before we wrap up today, what's the one thing you want our listeners to take away with them from this conversation?
Wow, that's a great question. Again, I think that the biggest thing is embrace your own unique journey. And that may sound a little bit cliche, but it really is a game changer if you're able to do that. We all, you and I talked earlier, we all have a journey, and we don't need to compare it to others. That is truly the thief of joy. But really, our paths, I think we should have like this straight line, right? Of what our accomplishments or even what our lives should look like. But really I know my path and so many others that I've spoken to not only have dotted lines, but there's curvy lines. Sometimes it looks like a bowl of spaghetti. Like there's just so many different avenues that get us to where we are, but also build who we are and show us, who we can be. And we should be really proud of that. And each one of us should be proud of all of our challenges that have been put in front of us and how we have handled those. We should really see our strengths for what they are. And really focus on that more than we do a lot of our weaknesses, where some of us want to spend more of our time. So I think that's the big thing that I would want to leave people with.
I love that. And, yes, we chatted earlier before we recorded, and you're right. We need to stop comparing ourselves to everyone else, because our journeys are ours, and they're beautiful and they're unique, and sometimes they're messy, and that's okay. Right. But at some point we reflect back and say, wow, look at what that journey looks like that got me to where I am today, right? Good, bad, or otherwise. And so I think that is wonderful advice to leave everyone with today, Summer. And so I just want to thank you so much for your time today. Your journey is so inspiring. And honestly, it's not like anyone else's. It is yours. But just seeing how many firsts you had, just really, I think, promising for the future, and to be able to see women breaking in, doing new things, and taking on, again, greater responsibilities like you are in your new role. Really, really excited for your future.
Thank you so much. I have loved being here. And I love being a part of what you're trying to do in your vision. And I'm excited to see all of those that will be impacted by all of the different podcasts that you're able to do. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you so much, Summer. And thank you to our listeners. If you enjoyed this episode, please rate and follow us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, subscribe on YouTube, connect with me on LinkedIn. And until next time, we'll see you soon.
Hi, guys. I want to share a bit about an organization that I support called Wednesday Women. They're on a mission to increase the visibility of executive women leaders that you should know, learn from, and be inspired by. On LinkedIn, they share the profile of 2 amazing women each week, on Wednesdays, of course. And now just imagine if we all followed, amplified, and nominated the women that we want to see more of. Their initiative provides examples of women CEOs, founders, sales executives, technical leaders, and so many more. By supporting Wednesday Women, you'll see more of these professionals in your social feeds, of course, but also on stages, podcasts, and panels. If you're interested in learning more and supporting their initiative, head over to www.wednesdaywomen.org or follow them on LinkedIn.